Fray, a fighting game community podcast hosted by iPlayWinner.com. My name is Derry, and I'm taking over for Hans as the new permanent host of The Fray. With us tonight, we always have a varied crew. Tonight's crew, some mainstays, some new faces. I'll run down the list here. You may know him from the internet, from the YouTubes. We have Maximilian in the building. Say hello.
Hey-o.
Also from the internet, I think all these guys are from the internet, actually. We got Ryan, a.k.a. Gutex Gutierrez. What's up?
Hey, what's going on, guys? Thank you for having me.
The substitute Spooky tonight. Representing for Team Spooky, we've got Arturo Sanchez, a.k.a. Saban.
It was all set up, man. It was all set up.
And then my longtime broadcast partner, Magus1234. What's up, man?
Back again, Derry. It's great to be back.
And then in the producer's chair tonight, we've got Chris Seglia. Say hello, Chris. Oh, really? Okay, that's good to know.
Hello.
So we've got a huge show tonight. A lot of big topics to talk about. Going to dive right into it. First topic of the evening is going to be SF 25th anniversary. It's coming up on Saturday. It's going to be starting around 10 a.m. tournament time, so don't hold them to that.
The 8th.
Yeah. So we've got Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo HD Remix mode. They're playing on Classic mode, but it's still HD Remix. Third Strike, Street Fighter Cross Tekken, and then Street Fighter 4 Arcade Edition. I think it's going to be the main event. I'm not sure if they're going to run Cross Tekken or Street Fighter 4 last. But
Take a guess.
I would hope they would run Street Fighter 4 last, but there's a chance they'll probably run Cross Tekken last. That's just my opinion.
Oh, right, because the car and everything.
Right.
I see. Gotcha.
On the website, they're actually listing the bracket for Tekken last, so I don't know. But let's run down the bracket. I'm not gonna. We'll start with Super Turbo, and I'm not gonna ask each of you guys what you think the winner is gonna be. I want to hear from each of you guys what you think or who you think has the biggest potential to be a spoiler. Before we started recording, we were talking about Jibbo. We'll get to Jibbo in a second, but I want to hear through each of these games. Who do you think could really mess somebody's year up in Super Turbo? I'll start with Max. Who are you looking at to really do some damage in the bracket?
For Super Turbo or
Yeah.
for in general?
Super Turbo.
Super Turbo, I haven't really been keeping up very much, so I'm not probably the best person to ask on that. If anything, I was saying in general for the whole tournament, I'm saying like probably Infiltration. But in regards to Super Turbo, who are the main top heavy hitters right now?
I think everybody's looking at Tokido for Japan, Afro Legends for America.
I'd say Afro Legends, just because I've been watching him play Super Turbo since I think before I was born. Yeah, I definitely would go with him.
Yeah, right on. Anybody else have a good spoiler?
Yeah. Oh, you talking about like an underdog or whatever?
Yeah, well, just like a guy who's going to come in there and be like a speed bump,
Dude,
be like a
Damn Die is gonna beat the crap out of some guys. I don't know if most of the internet knows about Damn Die. I mean, considering that Super Turbo is kind of a older gentleman's game. But every time I see Damn Die in Super Turbo action, I've never seen him lose.
I personally think, I mean, while everybody here is pretty OG, I'm looking at the list right now. There's Choi Boy, Laugh, Tokido, Damn Die, Fuzzy, Kenpachi, Afro Legends. I think like the spoiler could be Shoto's All Day. Like it just came out of nowhere to get second at the LA tournament. So who knows? I think like out of all the players in that list, the least is probably known about Shoto's All Day.
Mm-hmm. I agree, but in typical NorCal fashion, the rest of the country is sleeping on us, and I think John Choi is, I wouldn't call him a sleeper because he's, in my eyes, the favorite. So, but I would love to see him take it one more time for NorCal.
Yeah, I just think when you say spoiler, I think that it's somebody that nobody's expecting to blow it up. Like everybody you guys listed is, I think, expected to do well. That's why I said Shoto's All Day.
I think almost every single game, it's hard to say there's a favorite because of how just how close the skill gap has become worldwide with Street Fighter. So that's kind of it's kind of a tough question, but yeah, Shoto's All Day I think would be best. He would fit that description the best. I agree with Art.
Well, let's move on to Third Strike. Third Strike, as a bracket, as a tournament, I think is going to be the tournament that's going to be the best to watch because I think this is the tournament that has the players who are the closest together in skill. These guys are all, any of these guys can win this thing. And I mean that honestly. I'm not even going to ask who the spoiler is going to be because any of these guys could win. Let's go around and talk about who we think is going to win this thing overall.
Do you have the list? Can you just read them real quick?
Yeah.
Here, I can paste the link to the brackets in the chat room.
Yeah. I'll just paste it in.
Well, we've got MOV versus Nika KO. These are just, I'm just going to go off the first round matches and introduce the 8 players. MOV versus Nika KO, Tokido versus Gunfight, BOC versus Momochi, and Justin Wong versus Mester.
Okay, I think Gunfight might be really interesting to see. I don't think I've ever seen him outside of his own country play. So
where's he from? I've never heard of
Gunfight. He's
Gunfight.
from the UK. I'm not sure where exactly.
He won the France qualifier to come.
Yeah, he's a Dudley player, but he's like a legitimate Dudley player. Like he's sick. So I'm looking for Gunfight to bring the guns and see what he's got.
My money's on the 4-time SBO champion MOV. Just to remind everybody, MOV won in 2008 with a broken hand.
I remember that.
Yeah,
that was ridiculous. Like he had a cast and he was still.
Yeah. When we were over there, it was like we were playing all week, and then the day before SBO, he shows up with a cast, and the next day he bodies everybody for free.
Well, it proves that you only need half a brain and one hand to win with Chun-Li.
But yeah, looking at this list here, like I'm just like looking at where the Japanese players are placed. Like I'm thinking it's gonna be MOV too because if he beats Nika KO first round, he's gonna fight Tokido, Chun Mir, and then Mester and Momochi, they're gonna take each other out. So it's like I think it's Ma because of the reasons that Gutex mentioned, just because of his track record.
Yeah, the thing is though, Nika KO plays Yang, which I guess is one of Chun's only bad matchups.
Yeah, I mean it is okay against Chun.
Yeah.
I mean, dive kicks are annoying for Chun. Yang's pretty good. I don't know. It's Chun-Li though, man. Like 12's supposed to be a hard matchup for Chun, but it's like really.
Man, every time we think like the low tiers are gonna win at every SBO, what happens? Chun.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. 12 years later, still Chun.
It's like it doesn't matter. Like she's just that good.
All right. So going into Street Fighter 4, this is going to be obviously the highlight of the night for a lot of people. It's either going to be this or Cross Tekken. For a lot of players, this is the game they're going to follow the closest. There's a lot of well-known names in the bracket. There's a few faces that maybe people at home won't know, like Problem X or Happy Medicine. Maybe even Van Geef will be a surprise for some people. But the bracket, for the most part, is pretty stacked with talent that most everybody knows. You've got Daigo, Happy Medicine, Dominion and Gamer B, Problem X versus Momochi, Tokido versus Justin Wong, Snake Eyes versus Fudo, Ricky versus Aliun, Mago versus Wolfcrone, and Infiltration versus Van Geef. It sucks that I feel like maybe they shuffled up the bracket to appease some of what we were hearing on the internet with people grumbling about Van Geef being invited into the bracket because it looks like he has to play Infiltration first match, and that sucks.
Yeah. Why don't we talk about that though? What do you guys think about the fact that they threw these guys in there like Jibbo and Van Geef before?
Well, I mean, first we should talk about what the issue was to begin with, right? Which was that Brazil couldn't get visas. That's what I heard.
None of them could.
Nobody in Brazil could get a visa.
I guess they had as a group they were having problems getting because they all have to go through the embassy.
That sucks.
So they couldn't get the paperwork processed in time to get the visas to go out of the country.
Yeah, so like they probably just looked like at the LA qualifier and they're like, all right, third places can come.
Right.
I just wish it seems like that they weren't expecting for that to happen for the Brazil players, and that's why we're in the situation that we're in now.
Right. But there was no real transparency or explanation for the choices because Van Geef was a third place finisher. So then there was a bunch of people talking online like, why does Van Geef get to come? The original bracket that Van Geef was seeded into had Van Geef facing Justin Wong, which had Justin with some reaction on Twitter on his part That was you know. But now it looks like Van Gief is going to be facing infiltration first round, which could possibly be Capcom's way of trying to be diplomatic, saying, "Hey, Van Gief has to play, but he's going to play the best Akuma in the world, which is Zangief's worst matchup. So here you go."
Yeah. I think I mean when I'm looking at it, I'm just curious like what is in root of fairness, let's say at one perspective, not looking at it as a show in Capcom trying to put on a good show, but in root of fairness, like what would be the correct decision? And would that be
Some,
just to be a
someone gets a
buy?
buy. Yeah, someone gets a buy.
You think
Yeah,
so?
but then like they would get free money. They would already be walking into more money because of the buy. I don't think that's the best solution.
So that doesn't even seem fair. Just because
That,
somebody else couldn't make it, another guy gets a benefit. Like that doesn't seem fair to me. So when people say the fair route is to give somebody a buy, how's that fair to another guy? Like when all things are equal.
Well, I mean, I think it's a lose-lose situation all around. I don't think there's any way to make everybody happy.
nope, because like it's a tournament, so of course nobody's gonna be happy with how things turns out. Like when the plans change, but I think that the underdog in this tournament definitely Problem X. I think if people lose to him, if he gets past Momochi, they're gonna be salty. Gonna be
Yeah.
super salty.
Oh yeah, he's gonna be the salt bringer.
Well,
He's
he's
just problem salt because if he loses, whoever loses to Problem X, they'll blow. It's gonna be a blow up.
well. I think that it's funny to say this considering that Fudo, Mago, and Ricky are all in the lower half of the bracket. But if you look at the top half of that bracket, you've got Daigo, Dominion, Gamer B, Momochi, Tokido, and Jaewong all stacked against Problem X. So to even get into the semifinals, Problem X is going to have to beat Momochi, then the winner of Tokido and Justin Wong, and then either, I don't know, unless something weird happens, I'm going to say probably Daigo, but if not Daigo, then Dominion, Happy Medicine, or Gamer B. So, I mean, like, that guy's got to run the
Yeah.
gauntlet.
I don't think it's impossible. Like you look at the top half of the bracket, if Daigo picks Ryu against Happy Medicine, like he has a chance. He picks Yun, like I don't know. Dominion versus Gamer B, like that's a good match for a Don. So like I think Gamer B is the favorite to that one. And if Problem X beats Momochi, then maybe, yeah, you might be right.
Who does
I don't think it's
Problem
impossible.
X
It just
use?
depends on what happens.
The
Problem X
saltiest
uses Seth.
character of all.
He's
Yep.
Seth. So anything can happen.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okan?
He plays
Yeah.
Seth. He also defeated Alioun.
Yeah, you did.
So maybe Alioun's more of a dark horse though, because Alioun's kind of has this, aura around him as being like this,
Choke
master.
artist.
Yeah. Well,
Master choke artist.
this
No
master
offense.
that never kind of has traveled or
Right.
or played, but anybody who plays him like in sets, they all get blown up. Like I don't think I've ever heard a story of somebody playing a set with him and being like, "Oh yeah, I bodied him."
Yeah. And plus Alion doesn't let you record or upload matches to the internet, so that could be like a dark horse thing too, because there's less footage of him to study on in
For-
yeah,
A24 specifically.
But don't you guys think that the biggest issue is whether or not he can handle the pressure?
Yes.
I mean, sure,
Yeah.
he won the qualifier in France, but as like Arturo said, he doesn't really travel very often, and it's only going to be 2 out of 3.
Well, I wasn't trying to be capricious, but when I said master choke artist, a lot of people like to joke about Alioun that when he's put into high pressure situations, he doesn't really respond very well. And right
Yeah, but it's
now,
also like versus Rufus. It's not that bad for Alion.
well, no, but I think opinion across the community is trending against him. Right. For those of you guys that haven't seen it, they've got fantasy brackets on SRK right now.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
And
That's dope.
Alioun and Problem X are both in the bottom 5 for the gathered fantasy brackets on SRK right now. So
I think that's a fair assessment, though. And they're the underdogs, and rightfully so. They should be, because they haven't traveled as much, and not as much is known about them. But that's not to say that they're any worse or better than anybody. I wouldn't go that far. But I'm just saying, as far as if I had to make predictions, I don't have information on them to make those predictions. So, but like Art said, if Problem X caught a good read on his first round, and he runs his momentum with Seth and he's feeling himself after that. Like would not be that crazy if he
Yeah, it could be
won
a
like
problem.
it could be a problem, yeah.
I mean, like Seth. I mean, Seth bodies Guile. Like against the Don, it's not that bad, but not, like I don't know what the consensus on that matchup is, but I think if he wins the Momochi match, he has a great shot, depending on
Yep.
how things go.
Yep.
And for those of you guys that want to follow the fantasy action, you can check out shoryuken.com. And they also started a Twitter account for the Shoryuken Fantasy Leagues. It's at SRK Fantasy. And you can keep up on Twitter and get involved on shoryuken.com with that. And then closing out the evening, we've got Street Fighter Cross Tekken, which is a game that's moving into the 25th anniversary Tekken tournament kind of in flux. They've got a huge patch coming later this year, possibly early next year, that's going to change the game substantially and basically, in some people's minds, make it an all-new game altogether. They're taking out a lot of the stuff that some people think is kind of bullshit with the easy 1-2 chains in the neutral game into combos. Easy hit confirms are going to be more punishable. It's a little early to say about how the game's going to shape up with the patch, but this is probably going to be the last major tournament for this version of the game.
Has anyone here actually played 2013?
I think
Yeah.
Magus has.
Yeah, I played it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it a discernible difference, just like through like a regular match, that the game feels different,
Uh,
or you have to kind of like look for it?
no,
Um,
I mean it's different in the sense that like Derry put it pretty perfectly in the sense that you can't just like roll your face across the stick and hit chains and then be like, oh,
Yeah.
one of them landed, now I'm going into a combo. Like now it feels like Street Fighter where you have to stick out pokes, and unless you're only throwing out a chain unless you commit, because if you throw out any chain, essentially every character in the game who does any more than one hit, they're getting punished with a full combo now. So you
Okay.
you basically are playing like a straight up Street Fighter game now with the Tekken characters and everything, and they cut a lot of like this like flashy animation bullshit that just annoyed the shit out of me. Like when you play like long sets of that game and you have to sit through this like and then wait like 30
Yeah.
seconds.
Yeah.
So they just cut a lot of that crap. Like you can't switch and have your character regain like half their health in like 20 seconds. So there's a lot of subtle differences, a lot of like not so subtle differences, but
But
like it's
nothing
still
crazy like the speed or anything like that.
no, it's still the same game.
Okay.
It's
Do you
just
think it's like going from Super Street Fighter 2 to Super Turbo, kind of like that? I mean, in terms of like how much it's changed.
more like CVS 1 to like CVS 2 or something, 'cause
Whoa.
Okay, yeah,
Okay.
that's a big
Well, because
jump. That game was radically different.
right, but they essentially feel the same,
Yeah.
like you're still playing the same game, like it still just felt like it's a CVS game, the same engine and everything, but it's just totally different. Like you're not
Yeah,
doing the
yeah,
same
I see what you mean.
combos, you're not, the game plan's different, so that's kind of
Well,
how it feels.
Max is a guy who was kind of out on front as a pretty vocal fan of the game when the game released. What do you hope is the most changed aspect of the game in the 2013 patch?
I want to see just like Andrew was saying, those chains that eventually lead into kind of like full meter building poke strings that end with like a sweep and you can't even punish it. Like a lot of characters like Rufus have that, especially where they just go like short, forward, into crouching fierce punch, and you just can't respond to it. It puts them at a crazy advantage. A lot of characters are like that. And it's funny because the characters I mostly run, which is Ken and Ogre, they can't do that. Like they literally can't. So, and I remember looking at the patch changes, and it was like, oh, nothing's changing. They're
Yeah,
not
yeah,
doing
isn't
anything
Ken
to them. So
Folklore
nothing's
punishable?
really different for me. It's just everybody else is changing. So I kind of really looking forward to it for that fact that my characters aren't really getting anything but buffs as a result of the system changing. But if anything, I just like seeing the flow of. I would like to see the flow of the game just be a little bit different. People having to make a little bit better decisions about the things they're going to throw out. And I think that'll make everything much more interesting to watch. It's, if anything, it was the same exact chain over and over that really bugged people. The same exact combo over and over. Sure, that happens in all fighting games, but to the extent of which in Street Fighter Cross Tekken it was the exact same damn thing over and over. You saw the same boost combo into tag combo 6 times a game, sometimes, depending on how many times it took to take somebody out. And along with that, and health not recovering so fast, I don't know. I'm already a fan of Street Fighter Cross Tekken. I'm worried about it not being the same game, but at the same time, I'm like, this all sounds like good news. So I just really want to play it. I can't pass any judgment until I feel what it feels like.
The biggest change that I noticed was the lack of timeouts, and I think a lot of that has to do with the recoverable life that just recovers a lot more
Slower.
slowly, like Max said.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was watching Dominion and Jay Wong, two of the most defensive players in the country, play like long, like, hour-long sets, and these guys, probably only had, one or two timeouts here, and they were only because they were just playing that way, not because it was really the game, so it was cool.
But yeah, like I think SFXC is kind of polarizing in the sense that top players love it because there's no randomness and like the better player always wins, but the viewers hate it because it can be so like monotonous or whatever.
Yeah.
So we'll have to see.
I kind of feel the exact.
But like I think this is the game. I think like out of all the games on the list, this is the game that like I don't think not many people can predict very well since number one, not
Nobody
besides the top
watches
player,
it.
nobody's watching Cross Tekken. And number two, like, since there's less people playing besides the top players, like, like the meta game is also different from it hasn't evolved as much as SF4, and plus the game hasn't been out as long.
Well,
But-
in the Cross Tekken bracket, there's also another invite player or replacement player, and that's Jibbo. And speaking of spoilers, this is a guy who is one of the best Cross Tekken players in the country, and he gets invited into the bracket, and oddly enough, just like Van Geef is having to play Infiltration, Jibbo is going to have to play Infiltration in his first match. So Infiltration gets double duty having to host both these invite players, but I think in this instance, everybody's a little more wary of Jibbo and a little more scared that he might come into this thing on an invite and then go super deep into the bracket.
Well, Infiltration
person-
still runs like what? Rolento Ryu?
Yep.
I don't know.
Unless he's changing, like that is Rolento is just you can't based off the system of Street Fighter Cross Tekken non 2013. It's almost an impossible fight for anybody in the cast. Like besides like a couple of bad matchups, like it's so good. His Rolento is so good that it's I don't know. I don't see many people getting past him because it's so solid.
Like I don't think people are ready for Alio in this game though. Like like he plays this game like as much as the top players do, and I don't know if anybody really knows what's up with Lily in Cross Tekken, man.
Yeah, Lily.
She has a lot of 50-50 overheads. Like like her overhead leads to a combo, her low short leads to a combo. She has a really good dive kick. I don't think people know what's going on, and if people didn't know, Knuckle Dude, he has to play Tokido first round, but he won the NEC Cross Tekken tournament. He actually beat Ricky Ortiz in the finals after beating him in SF4.
And
Wow,
like
Ricky,
15th, right?
Ricky
Yeah.
really likes this game too, and he
Yeah,
takes
he
it
really
kind
likes this game, and Knuckle Dude. Well, like no surprise though, considering his team, it's like Geef and Guile against Rufus. Come on,
Oh yeah,
So no surprise there. But yeah, Knuckle Dude is definitely one of the guys that plays it the most. Like he actually plays against all the God's Arc guys, like Jiran and Sanford and Lincoln every day in Cross Tekken. But people don't know that though.
So who's going to be the first player to pop off on Twitter when they lose?
Ricky.
I think Infiltration.
The EG guys.
I like how you didn't even hesitate, Ricky.
It'll be the EG guys for sure. Those guys love popping off.
I love a pop off. I hope everybody gets mad.
Is there even-
Yeah, Korn? Like that Korn guy, Seth Lolo. Nobody knows about him, even though he won. You people know how to fight Kuma, and like what was the other character?
Oh, that Kuma, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
that was the guy that won in LA, right?
It was Kuma and Jin. Yeah, that guy.
Oh my
Better
god.
watch out for him too.
I felt like I was fighting like Ed, or it looked like, when I was fighting Ed Ma, he would use Kuma a lot, and it's just what the balls is going on against this character. Everything is
man. He's
plus.
really-
I don't know what to do.
Yeah, everything is. A lot of things are plus.
Oh, that character is really bad, but there's zero experience that players are gonna have versus that
Yeah.
character. So good
Is
luck
there,
with that.
is there not one Hugo between all these guys? Did Hugo just fall off the face of the planet in this game?
Yeah,
I
Like,
don't think there are enough players playing Hugo Basing. I still think he's good.
He's
It's
still
not-
good, but
it's-
it's
it's
funny
rough.
how he was the Marble 3 Sentinel for like the longest time.
Yep.
And then even online, dude, I've still consistently played this game online at least like, a few times every month. I haven't run into one Hugo in like the past 10,000 BP ranks at all. It's like the
crazy.
character just vanished.
yeah. That's almost how I think I'm guilty of it too, but a lot of people are, is how we judge games is such a knee-jerk fashion, is that,
Yeah.
there's like one new thing, one new element in a character who carries
Yep.
that element and he starts dominating early on. And before,
Cammy.
yeah,
Well, Splash.
or whatever, instead of, reaching into your bag of tricks and experience and trying to find an answer to it, you just want to cry foul and be like, Capcom, what are you doing? This game is broken. But like, who knows what happens like 4, 5, 6 months down the road of a game's lifespan? It could be completely obsolete. So,
So when
Yeah,
Yugo
nah,
takes his glasses off in 2013, he's gonna get a frying pan. That's it.
yeah.
So chances are we could see. I, I'm just based on how these brackets have been set up and how they've been seeded. It looks to me like Capcom is kind of seeding Infiltration as the first seed in both Arcade Edition and Cross Tekken, and I think that's probably a smart bet at this point. That he's probably the favorite for both of those games. What do you guys think Infiltration's chances are taking both Street Fighter Cross Tekken and Street Fighter 4?
High.
Yeah, it's high. It's high. I mean, like anything could happen, but like I think it's a high chance. Like he has a really good chance.
Who do you think his primary competition is in Street Fighter 4?
In
Daigo.
4?
In
Let me look
4.
at the bracket again.
Uh,
I mean,
at
looking at how the
least-
bracket goes.
it's so
All
hard.
right, let me see.
It's gotta be
It could
Daigo
be.
because Daigo got beat down the hardest by him at Evo. I think Daigo's got the most to prove.
And
Japanese vengeance.
yeah, and I've also been hearing that he's like on that workman type grind right now. Like he comes into the arcade at 9 and like just grinds it out till, 9 to 5 it. And he's like number one leader on BP, and I mean, he won the Japan qualifier. Like that shit is crazy. Like everybody in the Japan qualifier could come to the US and like potentially win a major.
And
You
Daigo's
know,
back to using Ryu, right?
Ryu and Yun, yeah.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
mean,
he's still
but
using
mostly,
Yun? Okay.
yeah,
Hey, like I'm looking at the list here actually, and looking on Infiltration side, so he has to play Vangief, and if you have to play the winner of Wolf Crone versus Mongo, both of which matchups aren't really terrible for Akuma. And I guess the only one, like it depends, like if Alion wins and then beats Fudo, then it could be a problem for Infiltration.
Yep.
On his side of the bracket.
I think his chances are good, man. Like honestly, and
Yeah,
if he
they're
wins,
good.
if he wins one game first, like if he wins one of the games first, he's gonna be like on this high. Like, dude, all my reads are good. Like I'm playing good. Like he's gonna believe in what he does, and that's big. Anybody who's a Street Fighter player knows what that means because, like, when you really know what you're doing, like you're basically doing what you've been trained to do, as opposed to like double guessing yourself.
I could see potentially Mago or Fudo if they're running Fei and them just like rolling through everybody because it's Fei.
Mago's such a choke artist, though, man.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
against Akuma though, Akuma versus Faye.
Yeah,
That's
that's
hard.
not
That's a
happening.
tough match for
Yeah.
Fei.
He can't even track down a teleport very well, man. Well, actually, no, he can. I mean, he has some problems, but like, I don't know. It's gonna be really tough for Mago. I don't even think he won a Wednesday night fights. Like, so I don't know.
Yeah, but that
Yeah,
match,
but then after that, he
he's
got second at Canada Cup, didn't he?
he's played Wolf Crone so many times. Like you guys know that, right? These guys have money matched many times in season's beatings. Wolf Crone lost to him at SoCal Regionals in 2011. Like these guys have a lot of history.
Well,
Who
I think
usually comes out on top.
I don't remember who won last time, to be honest.
I think it's random, yo. I think in this game you can't call anything. It's so random because the skill gap has narrowed so much.
Yep.
Well, we're speaking spoilers earlier in Street Fighter 4. The one guy I have my eye on that I think could possibly run deep in the bracket, ruin some people's day, is Snake Eyes. He's got a couple of Fey matches. He's got looks like maybe you have to fight Ricky. If he could unless he has to fight Ali Yoon's second round, he could make it all the way up to challenge Infiltration.
Yeah.
But then, it's Akuma versus Zangief. So
It depends on if he beats Fudo or not first round. Because as you guys know, Fudo, who's number one guy he plays all the time.
Zangy
Idazan.
Tan.
Yeah.
yeah, it's true.
So baby.
We'll
Can
see.
anyone confirm if
Oh yeah, Itabashi. That's right. Sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Itabashi. Not Cantone, the other geef you were saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. Itabashi.
was Momochi using Ken in Japan quals?
don't know.
No, Akuma.
Shit. Never mind.
Yeah. So he has Akuma and Cody in his squad. I'm sure he could simultaneously use either one of them. depending on the matchup.
All right, so that's the bracket preview. For those of you guys at home that want to watch this weekend, you can catch the action at finals.streetfighter25.com or at the Capcom Fighters Twitch TV channel, which I think is twitch.tv/Capcom Fighters. Uh, our boy Hans is going to be at the helm for the stream, so show some social iPlay winner support for Hansu. Uh, it's a
Fortnite
long
Phil.
There
way.
too. And say hi to Spooky.
Yeah,
Well,
Spooky will be there too.
Oh yeah, I'll make sure he's treated well.
Yeah. It's crazy to me that it's crazy to me that here we are at the 25th anniversary and we have this major tournament. Some people are calling this possibly one of the biggest tournaments that's ever taken place in North America, and I'm inclined to agree. And Hans is at the helm when, less than 5 years ago we were streaming in a garage for 50 people. So big ups to Hans for putting in the work and really making a name for himself and then getting this huge opportunity. And I know he's going to really knock it out of the park.
he's gonna tear it up, man. It's gonna be godlike.
Well, Capcom is not finished with the Street Fighter 25. Last week, they announced that they are going to be partnering up with IPL, with IGN's esports organization, their pro gaming league. The what does the I stand for in PL?
IGN.
Oh, well, whatever. IGN Pro League,
Yes.
Internet Pro League. What is it? IGN has signed a deal with Capcom to bring Capcom into the quote-unquote esports world for the very first time. They're going to be hosting uh, Street Fighter 4 and Street Fighter Cross Tekken. Sorry, Marvel players. In IPL Season 6, starting in 2013. There was a little bit of controversy this week when they announced the first date for the first timeout for IPL 6 was coinciding with final round, but they have since said they haven't really cleared up as to what they're exactly doing, but it sounds like there may be something in the works where IPL is either going to move back and not host fighters at all, or they're going to be working with, the rumor is they may be working with final round to put something together. Maybe final round becomes a qualifier for IPL, but it's good at least to hear that they're working with the fighting game community as far as not trying to step on any toes with final round.
Yeah, like if they actually make it as an IPL qualifier and like they actually throw some money towards the tournament, like I think that would be great, in my opinion. Because like tournaments can always use like a little bit more money, for
Little
organizing
skrill.
things. As long as the tournament is in order, because money doesn't fix problems. But
Well,
like something like final round, I think it would help.
let's talk a little bit about that. This is the first time we're going to have Street Fighter on a huge esports like stage with, I'm assuming, tens of thousands of dollars up for grabs multiple times over the course of 2013, because these esports tournaments, they tend to give away pots of 5, 10, 15, 20 grand. This is going to be a huge change for our scene as a whole. It's a big jump from community organized events with slightly lower production value to these multi-million-dollar events in Vegas that are giving out 10, 20 grand for first prize and 15 or 10 grand for second prize. Um, we'll start out really simple. Do you guys think this is a good thing overall for our community?
I'd say yeah, because exposure is never really a bad thing unless something goes horribly wrong and some naked man like runs across the stream or something like that.
May happen.
That could happen. It is the FGC. However, exposure is always a good thing. And if anything, letting more people know about competitive aspects to fighting games, like as far as like myself, who's kind of familiar with other levels of competitive gaming, like so many of them really look at fighting games as just like you hit buttons and you hope you win type of stuff. And it's still the same way. Like these are guys that are like amazing at Halo and stuff like that, and they just have no idea. And you have to understand that maybe the audience feels the exact same way, unless people that do understand. And it's just kind of come down to it where, fighting games didn't get the huge attention grabbing of all these leagues and stuff like that. And now we're, left doing our own stuff, but I think it's huge. I think it's extremely big.
Yeah, it's funny you bring that up, Max, because actually, when I was down in Vegas this weekend, they invited me to help out with their initial stream for it. But
Hmm.
just to kind of parallel what you were talking about, they at one of the days they finally set up in one of the halls a bunch of fighting games to kind of just a bunch of Street Fighter 4 setups and Street Fighter Cross Tekken setups for people to just kind of casually play. And of course, like me, Justin, Marn, Mike, we're all just kind of like sitting there playing, because Markman was there, had a booth there, so we were all kind of hanging out watching NEC and stuff like that. But across the table from us, there was some kids who came up to one of the stations, and they obviously aren't fighting game players. I don't think anybody there was, really a fighting game player. Maybe a small percentage, but and they started like sitting down, smashing the buttons and stuff like that. And as I'm kind of like, sitting over there just watching them, like they kind of bring up the fact, they're like, is there any strategy in this like at all? And they're like, no, you just mash buttons. So I come up to them and I'm like, of course there's strategy in this, and which I proceeded to kind of like outline a really basic strategy to Street Fighter. But basically I'm just saying, you're exactly right, like these people, like, they really don't even understand Street Fighter
It's weird.
at a
Like
fundamental level. Yeah, they think it's
it's
literally a mashing game that's all about luck.
you have these shooters and these RTSs that have pretty much, and even sports games for the most part, that take like the pinnacle of these huge video game related tournaments, and somehow fighting games don't get involved. Like, and it's weird that people don't understand. I guess sports makes sense. People understand the strategy behind sports. They see that that relates to a video game aspect of running plays and stuff like that. But when it comes to, I guess, RTS, just because they're so naturally complex, people assume that these people got to be really good at it. And when it comes to shooters, they see the twitch action. But on a surface level, when you look at Street Fighter, you kind of see a character throwing out moves, them landing or not landing. And I could kind of understand from a viewer's perspective of how people might not get it, which I think is one of the most important things when it comes to like this IPL thing, is how it's grown to this point of this huge community. And once people understand like the community of these guys that have been doing this for years, like something doesn't have a history just because a video game is freaking awesome. It's got a history because of the people that made it awesome. And I think going into the complex details of like frame traps and all this stuff, it's just I don't even, you know, by the wayside. Like frames and data and all this stuff doesn't even compute. I don't know. It's a sensitive area, especially because it's being put up against with all these other games. But it's an opportunity that's so big, I think, that it could kind of change things forever.
So, Ryan, you're a guy who has made kind of overtures to competitive gaming in the broader sense. You've kind of straddled the fence between fighting game community and esports, and you've done some cross promotion. What do you think about all this?
I think that anything that puts more money into the players' hands is a good thing because that enables more people to, really take it seriously and keep on going full time. So of course this will do a lot, um, to give more money to the players. Like Max said, all the technical stuff I think is if they're trying to take it to a mainstream audience, that stuff doesn't even matter. What really matters is the same thing that we've been doing with Cross Counter in my mind from the get-go, which is showing the personality of the players and giving the history of, like Max said, giving the history of the players and the community. Those are the things that get people to care about a game that they don't play. Like, for example, when you're watching the Olympics, before the big, 100-meter dash or whatever, you have, they have the little 5-minute piece on the guy from Kenya, and now you're like, yeah, I love Kenya, and then you have somebody to cheer for. So, if they can give more background on the players and really showcase the personalities, then I think it'll do well. The real issue is going to be whether or not they date stomp other events, like we were mentioning final round earlier. The official word from IPL through Jedi Rob is that IPL will not hold a conflicting fighting game event the same weekend as final round. So in that sense, then there's nothing to worry about. But at the same time, there's only so many weekends out of the year. I actually think that if they do start to date stomp, it'll make things interesting, not necessarily good or bad, but things interesting in the sense that all of the top players that would currently, like, let's say for example that they were like, oh sorry, like we're gonna, the date's already scheduled, can't move it, we're gonna conflict with final round. Let's just say if they did that, right? All the players that have a strong chance of winning money at final round, some of them will go to IPL to chase the big money, and some of them, let's say, will just go to final round. So, in an economic sense, the top of the top will get paid even more because they'll go to IPL, and the guys who were just out of the money, let's say just outside of top 8, those guys now have a much stronger chance of winning money at final round.
Yeah, it depends if they create. You're assuming they curb stomp. You mean?
Right.
You're assuming if they curb stomp. Yeah.
If that happens, but like,
I think there's a high chance of it happening.
Right, yeah, because the thing is, the IPL is not just a fighting game thing, it's StarCraft, League of Legends, and now fighting games. So I don't think that they can really move their dates just because a fighting game thing will conflict. So I think what they're going to try to do is try to work something out with any dates that they may conflict with. But the issue, of course, is the stream. Who will run the stream and how will that work?
Who's gonna run? Who's gonna run the TriCaster? You mean? Yeah,
Well,
that really is what it comes down to.
Yeah, I mean, let's just keep going with the final round example, right? Let's say that Spooky was all set to do final round, and then IPL comes to final round with a proposal to have IPL be final round be a qualifier. Now Spooky is going to stream it, but will that go on Spooky's channel? Will it go on the IPL Fighters channel? Will all the games be on the IPL Fighters channel? Will some of the games, who can be the commentators? Like, there's so many complications.
Yeah, most likely any of these would go directly to IGN. It's a huge business. Like, they're not going to let any of their property out. Right. They probably would just have to hire Spooky at that point, and he would work for them temporarily or whatever.
That's right, Max. You're absolutely right. Basically, they'd have to contract somebody to stream it, give them the stipulations. Here are the commentators that we'd allow, and then thus, giving them, let's say, 50 G's to work with or something, and being like, here's the prize pool that we'll add to it, and it becomes a qualifier if you do all these things. Yeah. That's what I would guess. I have no clue.
I mean,
I'm just a commentator.
I can only assume, based off the previous work we did with Cross Assault and having to work directly with IGN, that is how it would go.
Yeah, but like if IGN got involved, like, number one, are they going to bring a TriCaster or just use XSplit? Because if they do, like, you have to figure, well, if they get a TriCaster, then 5 people is going to be doing the job of one guy on XSplit. So then you have to think, like, who would be involved.
Right.
Well, they have people who could, run that.
I know, but then,
right, but the thing is,
you have to get the pace.
Can some outside fighting game guys that don't do fighting game streams every weekend do a comparable job to somebody who's been doing it for years at the highest levels?
Well, we saw the first IPL preview event wasn't that great, in my opinion, and not to put anybody else on blast, but MLG had a really rocky start their first weekend out with KOF, Soul Calibur 5, and Mortal Kombat 9. And I think the answer to that question is that hopefully IPL is going to take a lesson from their own performance last weekend, from MLG's first weekend performance with the fighters, and put more of the technical control into the hands of the fighting game guys versus these outsiders or contractors, because these contractors might have a sound knowledge of video production or even TriCasting, but when it comes to the way fighting game streams are typically run and what people want to see, they really seem to not have a great idea of how that works.
Yeah, they're not going to put fighting game guys in charge, like in more technical terms, in charge of a TriCaster, because number one, fighting game community can't even use a TriCaster like that, and has the experience and is already working for.
No, of course.
Well, Lewis does, but that's
Lewis. Yeah, he does.
But that's besides the point. I think they've already proven that they're willing to work within the community for all aspects of it.
Right.
And I think that's why I was okay with involving myself and my name with a company like IPL, because they already, they got Harrison and VDon in there to help out, and I know they learned a lot about running a stream. They also got me and Mike and James Chen to all come and help them out. And they're also been talking about helping events by pumping money into their events and make them qualifiers or whatever the deal is. But it's just, to me, it's showing that they're lending that hand to have a kind of connection with the community that maybe other corporations didn't do. And it may not be exactly what people want, but it's showing that they care more, or they understand more, however you want to look at it, than other groups before them have.
Well, that's leading us into our last topic, and we're gonna cover this semi quickly, last 10 minutes or so. Um, Everybody seems to kind of universally agree that at least on the surface, this is a good development for the community. It looks like either IPL, Capcom, or both is receptive to working with us as a community, which is good. They're at the very least receptive to the idea of coexisting, which is what some people were worried about initially. But that brings us into a broader question of growth. Right now, I don't think that anybody could say that we are in a growth period. Some people are saying we're in a period of decline, perhaps, and I don't agree. And we all talked before we started recording tonight, and I don't think any of us agree that we're declining. But in my opinion, I think that right now the status of our scene is one of somewhat stagnation. That with the big games have already come out at this point. We've been kind of coasting on the momentum of a big release after big release after big release ever since Street Fighter 4 in 2009. There's been at least one huge fighting game release every year for the last few years, and going into 2013, we don't have anything on the calendar to really look forward to except for patches or minor tweaks to games that are already out. So at this point, with IPL Capcom being one of the bigger announcements, are we looking at a period where perhaps growth is going to level off? And what can we do as a community to stimulate growth within our community?
No, like I don't think. I think at least for 2013, it's definitely not going to be a period of decline. It's going to be a period of growth at least, because IPL is getting involved. So there's gonna be more events in general. And plus you have to think, with IPL getting involved with Fighters with Capcom, that like MLG is going to be doing something too. So
Right.
there's going to be like a lot of events, and there's going to be all these companies, like not only that, but like, grassroots TO organizers are going to be chasing for everybody's tournament dollars. So like, I definitely don't think it's going to die off. I just think that, while the esports money is there, in addition to it's like to the grassroots tournaments, like also blowing up, it's going to be more packed than ever for 2013. But I
Well,
don't know
that's
about next year.
you bring up an interesting point. It was something I was going to mention during the IPL segment, but everybody seemed somewhat positive, and I didn't want to throw it out there. But I'll throw it out there now.
Go ahead.
We're talking about a community of gamers who, for the most part, are younger or college aged. They have a limited budget. A lot of them attend probably two major events a year. They go to Evo and then maybe one other major tournament, if that. Not every. I know we kind of live in this insulated bubble where we all go to a lot of events, but a lot of majority of the fighting game community, one, two, maybe like if there's a major in their backyard, they travel to a second major and then Evo. With IPL and MLG having these big tournaments for big cash dollars, and they're going to be attracting the top players, and top players tend to attract other players. Is this going to stimulate growth within our community to have these major events where a player is going to say, all right, well, I'm going to go to Evo and one IPL, and that's what I can afford to go to. I'm not going to go to, I was going to go to CEO, I was going to go to UFGT, but now I'm going to go to IPL. I mean, is it going to be growth, or is it just going to be kind of like sideways expansion?
I don't really think. I think that IPL would have to change the way that they were doing events in order to have a lot of fighting game community players attend that weren't top players with a significant chance of winning money. And the reason for that is because as far as I know, although I guess they did it this time, as Magus was saying, if they don't have setups for people to play, then I don't really think that the players are gonna want to go, because like community run events, have all the setups, you play casuals afterwards and whatnot. But I don't feel like that setup is the same unless they're huge StarCraft and League of Legends fans.
Well, that's true.
That's kind of more what I was thinking too, because I was wondering what the incentive to get people out. There's not exactly because One of the things that struck me, walking down the kind of hallways of this esports event, which was the first event I've ever been to. I've never had a reason to go to one. I don't play any of those games, so it was interesting to walk around, check the games out, meet the people and stuff. But one of the things that struck me is very different from a fighting game event was that you would have people walking down the halls and kind of brush shoulders with some player they are huge fans with, and you would see these guys like eyes light up and be like, oh shit, that's this dude. And it's like, you don't really see that very often in the fighting game community because we are all players, not fans. We may have players we prefer, and we have some guys we are quote unquote fans of, but it's not really a fan oriented game yet. It's really just kind of we're all a bunch of players, so we understand the game at that level. It's a different type of community. So I wonder what the incentive or how they're going to create something like that for non top players, sponsored players, whatever, invited players that are fighting game guys to show up, or if they're even going to try to target that at all.
Well, here's a good follow-up question to that, and it's kind of the culmination of this entire conversation, I think. Art was mentioning the fact that he thinks that while tournament numbers are slowly declining, stream numbers are constant, which means that stream viewership is staying about the same.
No, I'm sorry, Derek. I said that the TO numbers. I think you got it wrong. The TO, the entrants are rising, but the stream
really
are the same. Yeah, that's what I said.
Okay, well, either way, we have a community that looks about the same as far as participation goes, at least at the venues and online. So could growth be coming from things like what Ryan and Max were talking about earlier with creating more personality-based publicity for these games, getting stories out there about these players, getting people involved in the fan space to create more of what they have in League of Legends and StarCraft, where you have players and you have spectators, whereas what Magus was saying was in the fighting game community right now, it's pretty much just players.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yes. That's exactly it. Like that's what, like as you were saying, what Ryan was saying earlier, how he's developed Cross Counter as this hub to delve into the information and follow the personalities of the players, and for you to understand where the players are coming from, their goals, their dreams, and it's interesting. It's interesting to follow that stuff. Where mine was the opposite on anything I do, and it's to follow the games. It's to follow like the passion for the games, like how the game has evolved and stuff like that. Like my focus is about 25% what's going on in the community and about 75% what's going on in the game. And that's, I think, what the fighting game community kind of lacks is this following of a fandom, just as Andrew was saying. Like it makes so much sense when he's saying it, because all these other communities, especially the Call of Duty community, it's all fandom. There's no competitive players. It's just all people that just are fans, and it doesn't even have an esports or a huge competitive following. Same thing for StarCraft. You have all of these content creators and all these guys on YouTube and all these other facets of streaming that aren't even really competitors anymore. They may have been in the past, and they're just dudes that provide information or provide coverage, provide comedy, and they're essentially personalities that you follow. And the same thing goes with shooters. I think that's one thing that the fighting game community kind of lacks is consistent content creators that really help people support a game as not just in the sense of tournaments. Like tournaments are a big part of fighting games, of course, but it's when you have a game that sells like 600,000 units and only 10,000 people are paying attention to a stream, there's a huge drop off, and it's trying to get those people. That's been my biggest goal, to get those people to understand that there's something beyond just purchasing a game and having it sit on your shelf as being your fighting game, because that's what a lot of those numbers actually go towards. And it's developing that fan base to eventually understand that there's a deeper community and a deeper involvement you can have with this stuff, and it's actually the most satisfying competitive game you can probably play. I think that's what people don't understand, is that fighting games, compared to any of the RTSs, shooters, it's the most satisfying to be good at a fighting game than anything else, in my opinion. And a lot of people don't understand that because they don't understand the depth, the complexity, or the community, or the fandom of fighting games.
Yeah, like I think fighting game community is gonna, for that to happen, for everything you said to happen, Max, I think the fighting game community is gonna have to be dragged into that kicking and screaming, because we all know how tournament players are. Because at a tournament, it's survival of the fittest. They don't want fans a lot of the players, they don't want fans. They also want players that don't idolize them. So it's kind of like a different scene, I guess. I don't know
It
what the
is.
best
I
way
mean,
for that to solve it is.
Yeah, but
you have like, yeah. Go ahead, Ryan.
there's so many players that are only, in my mind, are only coming to tournaments and entering because they're going to be at the event anyways. They're not playing competitively because they want to beat Daigo one day. They're playing competitively because, it's a Street Fighter event. So I think that although there's a strong tournament player base, that's the minority of the total players.
It
So
is. It is. It
so
is.
in order to grow, we have to figure out how to engage the more casual players.
I know, like
And
it's hard, because the minority of the tournament players are the guys that show up to a Big Two or Wednesday night fights every single week. You
right,
know what I
those
mean?
guys are certainly in the
Yeah.
minority. That
Mhm.
number, I think, is holding steady. But we have an opportunity to create content that would be more exciting to the more casual player or the more casual spectator.
I
And
think
those are the people that can turn into fans, and that's where the money is.
you hit it on the head too, Ryan. Like with exactly what you just said, because you started up Cross Counter and the online saga of you and Mike playing games online at a perfect time in a game's life cycle where a game was still relatively new. It was still growing. This is when Super Street Fighter 4 was out, and it had only been out for maybe like less than 6 months. And you began that, and people started watching it and learning things about the game and getting into it as a result. Getting a content creator or somebody to get into doing this really depends on the game. And if a game's hella old, well, you're not. It's going to be hard to get somebody involved in something that's hella old, except for nostalgia reasons. A big factor, especially when it comes to fighting game community, a huge factor. And even though there's a billion games that came out in 2012, is new fighting games.
Yep.
It's critical. Like I'm praying to God that we're going to get an announcement, something like Capcom All Stars from Capcom or something crazy this weekend. It's probably not going to happen, but we need some hype. Like we
Yeah.
need besides
Yeah.
besides the hype of like these tournaments or like these curly mustache tournaments or bar fights and stuff like that. That's exciting. It's exciting to look up to it, but then there's nothing after.
Yeah.
And
Right.
and the hype of a new fighting game, like nothing compares in the video game world, in my opinion. When a new fighting game gets announced, and it's like you're clamoring and you're doing your best to try to get any information possible about what the f is going on, and that brings in the biggest audience. Like especially if the fighting game is big, like Marvel 3 coming out. Everybody was just going absolutely ape shit, looking for data, looking for video, all this stuff, and we haven't had that in over like kind of like a year now. Tekken Tag 2 was the biggest Tekken ever, but it had been out for years in Japan, and a lot of other fighting games kind of were a little similar. Persona 4 had been out for kind of a long time in Japan as well. I think that's one of the biggest things that the fighting game community needs to stay active and to grow is to produce big content when there's a big amount of hype.
Yeah, I agree, man. I've always said, like, people always ask me, like, what's one thing you could do to, like, or what would be, like, if you could magically change something or whatever to really grow the community. And I've always said it's, we need better games produced and we need good games to come
Yeah.
out. And, I'm not holding my breath for a new fighting game this weekend, but I really do hope that there is something happening and it'll be some information. Like if one comes out this weekend, that would be freaking amazing. Like I would lose my mind. But
Yeah.
I'm hoping there is something. I'm hoping that the fact that Capcom made this partnership with IPL tells me that they have something in the works.
Future planned, yeah.
Right, because it just seems like it makes sense to me, and especially with like a lot of like this weird buzz and rumors that I'm hearing. But I don't want to get my hopes up. I've had my hopes dashed too many times by too many companies.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, me too.
so, but we got to work with what we got, and I think Gootecks is pioneered, like you said, and hopefully people could just continue to pump content out there. Maybe if you're sitting at home and just been lazy, maybe you could be like, well, now's a good time with maybe a lot of interesting prospects with Street Fighter in the future.
Well,
Do you guys think that realistically, even if they were to announce a new game this weekend, that would come out before the next gen consoles come out?
I think at this point, if they did make the announcement, if I was Capcom, I would do nothing but make that a launch title on the next system. That could potentially take that game and blow it into proportions that would be absolutely huge. Like if this was, as many people want it to be, a Capcom All-Stars game, if you had like Leon Kennedy versus effing Mega Man, like some crazy dream-ass matchup that doesn't even happen in the Versus games that people have been asking for so long, make that a launch title on a new console, PlayStation 4, Xbox 720, whatever the hell, at the end of next year, which is most likely going to happen.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
That'd be amazing.
Probably have the biggest thing in fighting game history at that point, right next to Street Fighter 4. Everybody will purchase that game. And no matter, even those guys are pros, noobs, or whatnot, they're going to be looking for content. And through people looking for combo videos, anything of that nature, they get a little bit of an understanding of the depth of the fighting game community, as long as that content's being produced by somebody who understands the fighting game community.
And a lot of those guys go to like IGN and they check out IGN. They'll see a pro league and they'll be like, "Wow, there's more to this game than button mashing."
Yeah,
Yep.
I mean, it's not just growing the Capcom fan base. Sure, I think Capcom games are the biggest fan base of them all. But when Street Fighter 4 came out, like the fan bases of all fighting games got bigger because people got introduced to Street Fighter 4, and it was like their first quote unquote, real fighting game.
Well, speaking of content producers, I'm going to cut you guys off. That's going to be our hour for tonight. I want to thank all of you guys for tuning in. I'm going to thank Maximilian. You can follow him on Twitter at @Maximilian_. You can check out his YouTube series, the Online Warrior series, and the Yo Video Game series at youtube.com/user/Miles923 and theonlinewarrior.com. Shout out to Gutex. You can follow him at @Gutex on Twitter, and also you can check out some of his cross-counter produced videos at crosscounter.tv. Thanks to MLG stream producer Arturo Sanchez. You can follow his work at all of MLG's fighter streams for next year. You can also follow him on Twitter at NYCFurby. And then last but not least, thanks to my partner Magus1234. You can follow him on Twitter at Magus1234. Any final thoughts, guys?
Video games.
Do you guys think that with Capcom going to IPO, that like their next revisions of games or whatever it is, like, do you think it's going to be more esports friendly in the sense of adding a better UI?
My God!
Holy shit!
That could be the best
for next
thing.
week.
Oh my God.
That sounds like a great topic for next week.
Yeah. But yeah, I just want to throw that out there just to get the seeds flowing for next week.
You would think so, right?
Yeah.
Oh my God!
So
that
next
would
week-
be
But
amazing.
thanks for having me on, guys. It was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah,
sure.
thank you for having me.
Gary, thanks a lot for hosting. It's always good working with you, man. It's been a long time, and hopefully we can keep it going.
We'll talk shop on Saturday.
Of course.
Of course.
Hey, I'll be there. Hey, I'm going tomorrow.
Sick. All right. Yeah.
Right
Let's
on.
do it.
We'll talk. Let's get together.
Yeah.
All right.
All
I'm
right,
coming
guys.
into San Francisco at I'm not gonna say what time. All right.
Just drop me a DM or something, right?
Okay.
I'll be around.
Okay.
All right, fellas. I'm going to
That's the
bounce,
only
actually.
kid that's not going. Have fun, guys.
Aw.
I love that. You guys are like, yeah, I'll be there. But nah, it's okay. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing how Haunts handles the stream because, it's going to be kind of hectic there. And like Haunts is going to be doing a lot of that by himself. So I wish him the best. And the iPlay Winter staff that are helping him, like all the best of luck.
Of course.
Seriously, like I really hope it goes like great and there's no
Dude,
problem.
Haunts is gonna kill it, and Spooky's gonna be there. Oh, everything will be
Oh,
fine.
he's
gonna
got
be-
the backup. He's got the assist.
He does. He does. Hopefully everything goes according to plan. And then
Sure.
they just smashed out of the ballpark.
Well, it's a hotel, so the only question I have is is the internet going to hold up? But
Yeah, I think with Haunts being hired by Capcom, that's already considered.
yeah, I have to believe they would have nailed it in. So
I got $50 on Hanzo Gonzo appearing naked on stream.
yes.
You could pay him 50.
Gotta happen.
He costs
He would-
$50.
He would give you $50. All right, guys, that's going to be it for tonight. Say goodbye.
Later,
Peace,
guys.
folks.